We wake up every single morning in NATO from an air domain perspective, and our goal is to train and exercise like there's no tomorrow. And the purpose is to take that NATO air domain force, and with each and every passing second, minute, hour, day, week, and month, we want a gradual improvement in our readiness. And that means we're going to be trained and ready for any occurrence that could possibly take place in the region, with a focus on protecting the sovereign skies and the sovereign territory of NATO. And our forces are focused on training and exercising to be as ready as they possibly can to ensure that the defense and the sovereignty of those NATO nations, the land and the skies, are protected. And that's where our focus is, and that's where it will remain, so that we can be the best possible force, and that in itself serves as a fantastic deterrent.
We're equal. We want U.S. products bought. Well, the benefit that we get out of that is interoperability. So whether it's an F-35 or whether it's another platform that we have in our inventory, the more closely aligned what our allies are using, our coalition partners are using, the more closely aligned we're going to be for interoperability, and it'll make us much more capable as a force. So that's one of the benefits we get out of that. Now, there is a benefit in whatever platform it is, if we're procuring those platforms to keep costs down as we share and we go forward. That is a benefit, but the biggest benefit, we want to make them capable. We want to be able to defend themselves in the areas that we want, in the areas they need our equipment, and we want to have the ability to interoperate.
I think the same thing. I think we've acknowledged that we're going to need a mix of 5th and 4th gen for the future fight, and everything I do is based on the needs of the regional commanders as far as where do they want internationally for our partners to step up to mitigate U.S. Air Force operational risk globally. But if you look at the capabilities of 5th generation, if you're going to be in the fight day one, you need to go with the F-35. But that's an option that each country needs to take on, where do they want to be as far as contributing to the coalition. My observation has been that years ago, many countries globally depended on the U.S., and part of their strategy may have been to draw down on U.S. supplies, U.S. capability would be there. But I think in the last several years, the partners are recognizing and realizing that our stocks of munitions aren't what they used to be, and they're not going to be there to draw down on. So that's one area in particular where we've been encouraging many of the nations to look at their weapons supplies for, future fight potentially in their region. But again, I don't think this is something that's just happened, since a November timeframe. I think this is something that we've seen over the last several years, a trend towards countries realizing that they need to step up and make sure they have the capabilities they need to be valued coalition partners.
And Adam, just the presence of a U.S. F-35A at this Paris Air Show is showing a degree of cooperation with our NATO partners to improve our ability to integrate and enhance our interoperability. And as you well know, the NATO region will very, very soon embrace F-35Bs in the United Kingdom, and more quick to follow, including U.S. assets. And the quicker that we can all get together, all of us being challenged from a capacity perspective and from a fiscal perspective, the more that we can sit together side by side and think through ways to better integrate, the better off we'll be. And that's exactly what's taking place at this air show. Well, Adam, we've compared the precise numbers in 17, 16, 15, 14 comparatively for bolt-off saber strikes, and the numbers this year are equivalent to those for the past. So I've been looking at trending items. The trend has remained the same. They do, Adam. We abide by NATO Instruct and International Civilian Aviation Organization Instructs, and we're proud to report that 100% of the intercepts that were conducted during bolt-ops by the Russians were deemed safe.
Have things changed, the way we're engaging our partners? I can tell you I haven't witnessed any change in what I'm doing. I'm continuing to engage globally. I think when you look at the challenges that we have globally, what's happening, what I'm seeing is a growing demand from our partners in airspace and cyberspace. So I can tell you that we're busier than ever, and people want the U.S. to be the partner of choice. Well, I can speak for the Air Force that the portfolio that I have oversight of is over $160 billion. And I can tell you over 90% of that is partner nations' defense funds, not foreign military financing. So while I'm concerned about some of the reductions and the impact it has on international military education and training for some of those countries that depend on the foreign military financing, for some of our large sales, I don't see it having a huge impact.
Deployment to Lakenheath, United Kingdom, was groundbreaking from the standpoint of the performance of the jet itself, the performance of the support personnel, the performance of the maintenance personnel, and the performance of the operators. We basically flew 100% of the fragged schedule, and were able to conduct 2 additional deployments with 2 aircraft and 1 tanker to the Balkans and to the Baltics. And the purpose of those mini deployments within that macro deployment was to improve the interoperability with the NATO partners and to get the region accustomed to having a 5th-generation asset in the skies. The other large piece is to get the region exposed to 4th and 5th generation integration in the air. And as you probably know, if you followed the macro deployment to the United Kingdom, we had the opportunity to train with partners in the region in the United Kingdom, and we actually had 4th and 5th generation assets airborne together. So all in all, an incredible success.
And Valerie, the second half of your question, what did we learn and what can we carry forward to future deployments? The objective of this deployment was to deploy the F-35 and discover what we don't know. The deployment went off perfectly, but there are still some areas that we can work on with the supply chain management, the deployed spares package, the spare parts that we bring. We set up the Alice system in a record time of 3 hours, which typically takes about a day. So every single deployment, we exercise those muscles that we haven't used before, and they get stronger each and every time. So those same lessons will apply to whatever theater we get forward deployed to next.
My discussions with Canada, having seen just recently they passed about a 73% increase in their defense budget. You know, now's the time for the U.S. to engage so that the U.S. is the partner of choice for those increases.
Bilateral consultation with all of our partners in the region and all of our allies for periodic, episodic rotations of aviation assets to include the F-35. Again, you have to be smart about it. There's an ability of the region and the nation to absorb that asset, learn from that asset, and the number of times that you revisit depends upon how you can draw those lessons learned and ensure that the next visit parlays on what took place before that allows you the opportunity to get more and more ready with each passing second of the day. But I promise you, we're all working very, very hard to fill our diaries to the gill with as many of those visits as possible, because the value of deterrence is fantastic, but it also improves the interoperability in the region.
As for the Asia-specific question, while we typically don't discuss operational plans, we are leaning forward for a deployment somewhere in the Pacific region, hopefully in about the fall timeframe. It gets back to being a capacity issue. As I stated in the 12 o'clock, which you were there, you know, we have 1 operational squadron. We stood up our 2nd one on June 9th. So we're just increasing the Air Force operational presence, and that will expand their area of operation that they can operate in.
Both. More growth and more fighter squadrons. But as you know, Marcus, it's the chief has been very, very clear about the pace and the size of the growth for personnel in the Air Force. And as you well know, when you increase manpower, it doesn't come free. So we'll be very, very deliberate about the slope of the addition of forces in the Air Force to ensure that we strike the right balance between the gaining of personnel and the capability to continue to embrace the critical programs that we need to put as many ready fighter squadrons as possible in the Air Force. And you've obviously heard from our Chief of Staff of the Air Force. He's working very, very hard to solidify a foundation of 55 well-trained and ready fighter squadrons.